Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of epic racing in the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship Season 16 as hosted by SimRacing International and brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. It is time for round 2 of 10 and we have made our way for the first time in the series history to Mexico for the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, a circuit located deep within the capital city of the country known as Mexico City, and a city without a state, indeed the stateless city here, but in a brilliant state to go racing as our drivers set and get ready to go racing today. They're taking on this circuit for the first time and the big question is, what exactly is in store? Well, on paper, this is a circuit of some very peculiar contradictions. A very long start-finish straight. Also, multiple extended straights connected together corner sequences. But in those corner sequences, there's an absolute blend of hairpins, sweepers, and also chicanes. Put it all together over the 2.67 mile course's length, and it means this is a circuit that is very difficult to get right, because if you set your car up for one aspect, whether it be straight line speed or corner ability, you have to sacrifice something else in between. And that's why you consider the very high altitudes at which this circuit is situated at, which means cooling on the car is going to be much less than normal, and therefore tyre temperatures could be just as important as the outright fastest lap. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side. You're tuning live, of course, via the official SimRacing International YouTube channel, and you'll be tuning in right now at SRI or 30 SimRacing International on YouTube.com. Search for it and you'll find us there, and you are tuning into this broadcast, which is post-round. The race had occurred as of Sunday, what was none other than Sunday, the 5th of October 2025, but we're bringing it to you today as if it were live for your viewing pleasure. It means we do not know what happens, where it be in the practice session that's just completed, the qualifying session that's currently ongoing, or 30 of the race is upcoming. Speaking of which, in terms of our race times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. What we can see is in just shy of 6 minutes time, we're making our way to our grid for our second of our 60-minute races of this season. And the big question at the end of it will be, will we see repeat winners, or will we see new names take to the spotlight, or something in between? As we make our way into this round, well, we'll take you through the season so far and what we've still got lying in wait. Because last time out, it was the Red Bull Ring that played host for our season opener, and on the 28th of September in Austria, we got to see some incredible racing up and down the field. In the elite class, it was quite straightforward in qualifying. It was a VENARI Racing lockout of the front row of the grid, with Ulrich Shaw finishing ahead of his teammate Philipp Schwörke in qualifying, but it was Schwörke who was able to run away with things in the race. I mean, our DCW Racing's Richard Simnor was able to bring up the runner-up spot. In the Pro class, it was Nathan Scott who delivered a perfect start to the season, and the same could be said in the Premier class. And the fact that whilst he may have put his car on pole, for John Wood, it all went backwards, but for Alan Lever, he took it calm, he took it cool, and therefore he was able to bring home an absolutely brilliant victory. As for the Evo class, meanwhile, well, it was a very close battle for pole position between Richard White and Simon Hartley, and also Edward Berry and Joel Loudon in the mix, but in the race, it was Simon Hartley who was rewarded for his consistency, with things not going the way that Richard White wanted them to, and it sets us up very nicely then coming into round number 2. After today, we've got plenty of venues around the globe, and next time up in round number 3, it'll be the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya that plays host on the 12th of October. But coming into this round then, talking about our circuit, here is the track map. A big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but also the track maps that come with it. This Grand Prix circuit at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, a very flat circuit. This two-dimensional image really does do it justice, in fact, with regards to the fact that this is a circuit that lacks elevation change, but it packs plenty of variety when it comes to its corners and also its straights. A long start-finish straight and a long connector from turns 1, 2 and 3 all the way through to turns 4, 5 and 6. But after that, what we see is it's all about sweeping bends, and the average apex speed gradually winds down until we get to the stadium section of turns 12 through to 16, where drivers will exit the stadium and wind themselves up to go charging back into the start-finish straight to do it all over again in this Mexican circuit, and it is all going to be about who can get it right across all 3 sectors that is going to make the difference, not just in qualifying, but also in the race. Now, as we get ready to go racing, in terms of a reminder of the rules, car setup wise, this is an open setup series, and fuel loads are restricted to 60% for all the races. Qualifying, which is currently ongoing, is a closed qualifying format, meaning drivers have 4 flying laps plus their outlap available to them. As for the race, well, it will commence via a double foul rolling start, as it's a tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship, with 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel. Changing tyres is entirely optional, and each driver has 1 fast repair available should they need to use it, and we may also see drivers come into the pits if they picked up a drive-through penalty, and that will be for 20 more instant points. All race journeys shall be conducted post-race. Now, of course, drive-through penalties were a big talking point of the Red Bull Ring, with the track limits being so aggressive there, but the track limits are a little bit more lenient here in Mexico today, and hopefully that means we are going to see things be a little bit more stable for those out there right now. Speaking of which, we've got a few drivers out there looking to set their best possible times, and here is none other than Mark Collicott right now, and well, it is looking as though at the moment at least, presuming the laps are valid, it is going to be a big toss-up between the pros and the elites, because you can see them on the left-hand side of the screen, the timing tat has shown according to the classes, but the thing about how they qualify is they all qualify together, and well, as we show you the overall qualifying times, it is currently a pro driver who's putting down the fastest lap ahead of the elites, and it's Mikey Story who's looking to be the fastest of everybody here, as he gets it very rolled there, coming into the sweeping right-hander for a brief moment, how he gets it back together, and then normality is restored, as Helder Gonzalez says, well, that was just a rehearsal, Mikey, I'm now going for pole, and I'm going to get it in the Aston Martin Vantage Evo, and as he roars his way on down on 41.142, looking good there as he makes his way onto his final flying lap in this qualified session, and we're very curious to see whether he's able to pull this off or whether anybody else can potentially take away that pole, because of the fact definitely a lot of drivers here showing a great amount of pace, and right now we can see that elite and pro, you could almost say they're just one class given how close they are, but this is bound to happen, of course, when you have 4 driver classes and you have a whole array of skill levels at certain circuits. They will be a great equaliser, and you will see drivers of lower classes suddenly spring on through. Intriguingly, speaking of elite drivers perhaps struggling, Richard Simnor right now all the way down in 22nd place with ECW Racing. That's going to put him a long way out of the running order. Indeed, he's going to be in amongst all of what will be the Premier drivers, including Premier Provisional pole sitter Richard Jones. Here is Jones as he makes one around and slow and steady racing machine, and well, he'll be hoping that he can piece things together quickly in order to make sure that Luke Sherlock and Hendrik Zilka do not get close enough, because they are only a 10th and 1/2 tenths away from him respectively at the moment, and that can be very quickly found here, particularly in the middle sector of the lap. As for the Evo class, it's Thomas Weston right now who's looking very quick, as he looks very sketchy there coming out of that corner, and as he makes his way back together here, heading out to turn number 11 in towards 12 very shortly. Well, right now, in fact, he's going to be going a bit away there because he's heading through the S sequence at the moment. That's turn number 6 where he went very sideways. Thomas Weston right now in the number 98 McLaren. Well, if he's on course his pole position, it won't be this lap, it will be a previous one. And are there any other big surprises there? Well, perhaps another one is Yavi Sierra all the way down in 35th place as the checker flag comes out of this session with 1 minute to go. Indeed, all of the drivers now will be on their final flying laps if they haven't already completed them, and we look forward to seeing who is going to deliver the goods the final time around. But as we say hello to a number of you in the YouTube chat there, included Cry Fuels, also Steve Rubino, also Edward Berry and Luke Sherlock. We can't forget Sherlock, of course. And well, as they make the way on through right now, it does look as though, well, for Sierra, this might not be a qualifying session to be remembered. He went personal best in Sector 1, Sector 2 and 3, and no good for Sierra. He's going to start at best down in 36th place. That is going to be very painful. Meanwhile, your winner from last time out at the Red Bull Ring, VENARI Racing's Philipp Schwörke, as he makes his way through the stadium section in towards turn 17, 516 initially. What's he going to do here? As he almost hits the wall there coming out the final corner. He'll squeeze this lap in, but for Schwörke, it is going to be pole position there, 40.896, and that's just ahead of Helder Gonzalez by 1/2 tenth. That's qualified complete, ladies and gentlemen. Let's head to the grid then and see how they all line up for today's round of racing. So as the drivers make the way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 2 of the championship, as we do get that grid up on screen. It is as follows. Philipp Schwörke once again taking it to the front row of the grid, but this time takes pole position and does so by the slenderest of margins. It's only 1/2 attempt to Tractix Racing's Helder Gonzalez who joins them on the front row of the grid. 2 elite drivers that give way to an elite and a pro, and it's Ryan Davies, the elite driver for Empire Motorsport, ahead of Mikey Story for Dexterous Motorsports. We then have Jacko Taylor starting in 5th place there for Empire Motorsport, looking very threatening in the practice session. In qualifying, a 5th place is a good performance, but can he be even more threatening when we go racing? We will see. Colin Furs, well, not Colin Furs, goodness me, I've got a YouTuber on the brain here. Let's focus on Christian Furs. There we go. I've done that twice now in 2 broadcasts. I do apologise, Christian, if you're listening right now. Christian Furs there taking 6th place on the grid for Panda Spec Motorsports. A great performance from him in qualifying. He'll be pleased with that. He's then going to be joined from behind by Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport, who lines up directly behind his teammate Jacko Taylor, and we'll have Christian Maltret for Mimica MA70 Esports. Well, it does seem as though they've changed the team, but you can't change the man who starts in that full throw of the grid, and we do look forward to the Mimica MA70 Esports machine as it gets away, and will Maltrek a very quick driver, no doubt about it. Casper Bruckner starts in 9th place for Old Dudes in Cars, ahead of Yves van Sander, and the Belgian driver there for Pegasus SimRacing will complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, we make our way to what is the 6th row of the grid, and on that will be the combination pair of Matt Hoyland for Dexterous Motorsports and Giles Philipp for DDK Racing Team. From the Belgian driver, it's then going to be Joe Nathan, who starts 13th for Rage Against the Game, and he will be joined on that row by fellow elite driver there for DCW Racing, Andy Jones. Both drivers seemingly struggling to a degree in this qualifying session. Krista Houseway begins his day in 15th place for Tractix Racing, firmly where he was in the previous round as well, and we can imagine the Norwegian driver here will be happy with that, but we're wondering what can he do to bring down the aspirations of a good number of drives up the road from him. Well, we will have to wait and see. Then taking what will be the premier pole position with the green sash, it's Richard Jones of Slow and Steady Racing. A brilliant effort from him, and the Englishman there taking that pole position in class by the best part of 4 attempts. Between himself and Hendrik Zilke, the second place starter in the premier class, you have to look to firstly Nathan Scott for Empire Motorsport, who begins this one in 17th place. He'll be joined by the company there of none other than Mr. Harper, and well, as we do wait to see them all get away there, I think a bit of a delay for a couple of drivers getting away. Raz Harper there starting 18th place for DDK Racing Team. 19th for the grid, it's going to be Richard Simnor, who struggled in qualifying for DCW Racing, and then we do have the second premier driver there of Hendrik Zilke starting in 20th for Old Dudes in Cars Blue. Outside the top 20, this is a big grid, we keep on going. Mark Collicott starts 21st for DCW Racing, head of Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars Blue. Then we do have third place premier starter of Samuel Clark for Dexterous Motorsports, ahead of John Watt, the SimRacing International saving privateer Ryan driver there, looking to move forward after what was a bit of a disappointing end to his day at the Red Bull Ring. And then have behind him, it's going to be Luke Sherlock there, who starts 25th, and then we have Richard White, your Evo pole sitter for UKSimRacing Mansell, he starts 26th. Well, then behind them on row number 14, it's Alan Lever for UKSimRacing Mansell, ahead of Ricardo Luis Pereira, and the SimRacing International privateers of the Caribbean driver will look to go forward as quickly as he can. Then we do have Thomas Weston starting as the runner-up sitter for what will be the Evo class. He's 29th, so good qualifying session from him in the end, but Richard White did pip into the post, and Nathan Anstis completes your top 30 for UKSimRacing Mansell. We then have starting 31st. If you find Anstis on the grid, guess who you find right behind him or in front of him? It's Jack Barker for Made for Racing, 31st, with Daniel Page starting 32nd for Old Dudes in Cars. We'll then have the combination there of or Jordan Lee Jones, who starts 33rd for DWR with Sims Coach Setups, ahead of Peter Cox of Slow and Steady Racing. Austin Graff begins the day 35th for Axis Simsports, ahead of Yavi Sierra with that disappointing qualifying performance from him. He's 36th. And then we do have, starting in 37th place, it's going to be Edward Berry for UKSimRacing Hill, ahead of SRI with Saving Privateer Ryans. That's going to be Yoel Loudon. Then completing your top 40, it's Rob Windsor for UKSimRacing Hill and Max Galgi, who couldn't believe it he finished 3rd until he found out in the broadcast last time out for Split Strat Esports. And then we do have behind them on a row, number 21, it's going to be Steve Hughes for UKSimRacing Price and Darian Giacovelli, and then we will have none other than what will be Noah Blackwell. In fact, that is Daryl Giacovelli, I should say. Then it'll be Noah Blackwell for SRI Saving Privateer Ryan and Alex Brown for Slow and Steady Racing. Then we're going to have Carl Tivoli, the privateer, ahead of Gareth Newton for GPX Simsport, and last but not least on the grid, it will be Darian Giacovelli, who starts in 47th place. But the field is set, ladies and gentlemen. We are almost ready to go racing, and as the safety car gets ready to pull away, well, you know what time it is. It's time for green flag racing. It's the Philipp Schwörke to take us to the green. And it's lights out and away we go here as I try to get underway for round number 2 of the championship. And Philipp Schwörke nails the start in the Ford Mustang, but look at Helder Gonzalez in the Aston Martin that gradually outpaces in there in low speed acceleration, a lot of wheel spin, not much grip out there with the conditions, but as 47 GT3s roar their way down towards turn number 1, it's going to be free wide in the background there for most of the field, but who's going to get things all said and done? Looks like a good few drivers coming through there, couple up at the apex curb. Everyone survives it for now. These cars can take a bit of a beating on the suspension rods, and well, it's going to be 2-3 wide again there, as that is going to be Giles Philipp making some progress, and Casper Brockner going very defensive in the BMW M4 Evo. Further back, I think we had a bit of a moment there for Raz Harper, who's had it go round, but most drivers are safely through the opening couple of corners. Car going slowly in the left of the rear of the picture. I believe that's a rejoining Raz Harper there, who's coming back to life, and as the field comes on down, we've also got a couple other drivers out of sorts, but Yavi Sierra in amongst all of this, has survived all the chaos and carnage, and well, it looks like the inside there of Steve Hughes, but Hughes knows it's left into right and now defends the inside as they come out of that right-hander. But a good start from everybody involved. Lovely to see so many cars going green and with it all surviving, but it doesn't work out there. Still, as that, Alan Lever's ejected stage right, and that's gone very wrong for Alan Lever coming out of turn number 6, and he waits to rejoin there. Patient man, I can tell you, is Alan, and well, as he now makes his way back on through, he's going to get himself up to speed. Now he's at the very back of the field. But off to the stadium section we go for our leader. Helder Gonzalez is charging away with this, and we'll hold the phone a second because Helder Gonzalez is flying, and Christian Furs has jumped all the way up into the lead of the pro class, and with it into second place. Mikey Story's just behind him. Where is our pole sitter in all of this? And the answer is, I can't see him at the moment, and I think there he is. Philipp Schwörke has dropped all the way down to 15th place. I wonder if there's been a bit of an altercation that sent Schwörke sideways somewhere, because that is completely unexpected, and we're going to have to get a replay of what exactly has happened to him, because he has had a nightmare start, and well, it has not worked out at all. But speaking of things that haven't worked out either, well, oh my good lord, that is Richard White who's gone around literal pit lane entry. White's car is pointing in the wrong direction. The rear of the cars come flying off as well. That's a lot more dramatic than it needs to be, perhaps. Car into the pit lane as well. That is going to be Richard Jones with damage, and Richard White right now is missing half a Ferrari 296. If anybody's seen it, go to the Lost Property Office and please give it in, because for Richard White, he is missing half a car there, and I'll be amazed if he gets it around without towing on this lap. There'll be credit where it's due. So he's had a bit of a nightmare moment, but meanwhile, whilst it's all gone wrong for so many, and further back, one driver's had a brilliant start to this race is Joel Loudon, who's moved all the way up into third place of the Evo drivers. He started in 5th. He's got ahead of the likes of Alex Brown and Carl Tivoli, and is making some great headway. He'll need to chase down Edward Berry, who's his next target. But Berry in the McLaren here, he is in a bit of a Mercedes sandwich, but you can see him here in the green and black UKSimRacing Hill machine. And as he makes his way out of turns 4, 5 and into 6, well, right now Edward Berry trying to move a little bit further onwards. But all coming through, we say hello there to Tansander in YouTube chat, also to Mac Attack, Sakuria 566, and also there to Nick DeBeck, Alex Brown, and DXT Roberts. Great to see so many of you tuned in today. And well, a bit of a mistake there from Edward Berry. Oh, hold up a second. Nobody wants to normally go sideways there. That's for the sweepers, and that's Raz Harper. Well, after a lap 1 altercation coming out of turns 1, 2, and 3, he's now ended up in a lap 2 altercation. And for Raz Harper, this is not a happy start to his race. He fights there with Gareth Newton, and well, in the end, he will get nose ahead. The GPX driver here, I think, just playing the patience game. I wouldn't be surprised if Newton right now is potentially saying to himself, just stay on the outside, don't do anything silly. Alan Lever's going to make it 3 wide. Alan here's got some ideas, and meanwhile Raz Harper parks it up and says, this car's undrivable, I can't get it to the pit lane. So he's decided there to go for the tow option, which I think is sensible. Meanwhile, for Mark Collicott, he is on the back of none other than Jack Barker. Barker's gained 2 places, started 12th in Pro. He's making some progress. Collicott, however, wants to try and subdue that progress and make some progress of his own as he's regressed since the start of this race. Austin Graff is also there. Is it going to be Ford on the inside? Yes, it is. It's 3 wide. On your left is Austin Graff. In the middle is the DCW Racing car Collicott, and on the outside is the Lamborghini of Barker for VENARI Racing. And we'll end in Austin Graff backs off. Barker goes outside to inside, almost misses his braking over turn number 2, survives it, and forces Austin Graff and Mark Collicott to look at each other and try to recreate Ford versus Ferrari, but the Mexican edition. But as they head down towards turn number 4, right now it is going to be nose to tail between these drivers. Nothing between them right now, and Austin Graff here taking another peek. He really wants this, does Graff. The Premier driver wants to get past the Pro, but in the end he's not going to be able to get it done. But whilst this is happening, let's not forget we've got fighting further up the field, and in fact we have one driver here who's created a very long train of cars. It is Irfan Sander, who right now has got Casper Brotner, Joe Newman, Christian Maltrek, Giles Philippets, Joe Nathan, Matt Hoyland and Andy Jones all queuing up behind him. He has got a 7-car train queuing up as he's gradually letting Jacko Taylor pull away. And well, this isn't by design, I can tell you. I think that Zander right now enjoying his 3rd place in the Pro class, but recognising that he may not have the pacer leaders and therefore just try to run his race. And Casper Brotner, meanwhile, now has to make the do or die defensive decision, which is, does he want to dice his way out the inside or not? And we'll understand if he gets it wrong, Joe Newman will be right there to capitalise. Because we jump on board here with the Aston Martin Vantage V8 Evo for Empire Motorsport. The lovely cars, of course, from Empire Motorsport. Those liveries have withstood the test of time. And I'm trying to remember what the team used to be called, because they changed the team name, but they never changed the liveries, apart from the logo on them. And well, whoever designed these liveries, I can tell you they are a brilliant designer. As they roll the way down towards turn at number 1, Joe Newman right now not really in the straight line speed here compared to the BMWs in front. And that's what we're seeing. Top end speed, the Aston Martin has got a bit of it. The BMWs have got plenty more. And Newman right now, I think just watching at a distance, this Aston Martin It definitely has been one of the new kids on the block that's really made a lot of drivers raise an eyebrow, look over the shoulder and potentially consider jumping ship to it. And those who have, they've been reporting some very positive results. However, they're also starting to find out that it's not the easiest car to tame out there setup-wise. You do have to dial it in, particularly to get the most out of it. Now, speaking of trying to get the most out of his racing, here is Samuel Clark taking a bit of a peek up the outside of Nathan Scott, currently in your Premier League. And I can tell you right now, the Samuel Clark fan group in the YouTube chat, which is always great to have. Well, Clark right now definitely enjoyed a very good run. Ricardo Luis Pera only what is 9/10 behind. And, well, he has got Luke Sherlock close behind him. So the top three of the Premier class, they're still together. And Hendrik Zilka, meanwhile, a little bit further back, he's got Thomas Weston taking a bit of a peek, left, right, and centre, and wondering, okay, what could I do to get in amongst this Premier pack, given the fact I'm leading Evo at the moment, and I kind of want to move forward. Well, we've just had Ricardo Luis Pera make his way past Nathan Scott, who made a bit of a ham sandwich at the start of the S's, and that is going to be Luke Sherlock looking for an opportunity around the outside here, coming in towards the stadium section. On the right there is Sherlock. However, Scott goes defensive here. He doesn't want to let the Premier driver go. It's understandable, and, well, Sherlock now has Zilka right behind. But as we jump aboard here, jumping aboard with Hendrik Zilka for Old Dudes in Cars Blue. I've just got to give a shout out there to the fact Luke Sherlock is running the Pennzoil livery on that BMW, and that is a shout out to the JGTC era Skyline 500 from what is now known as Super GT, so the Japanese touring car era before it became Super GT. He's running livery there in dedication, I do believe, to the Nissan GTR R34 Skyline that used to run it, and I'm sure if he's in the chat he'll tell me if I'm right or wrong on that, but that livery is absolutely iconic and indeed made its way onto the Gran Turismo simulator all those years later. But as they make the way down, that's going to be Sherlock looking up the inside there, trying to force the issue on Nathan Scott. Gets up the inside under braking, and I don't think Nathan Scott's going to have a response here, as Zilka right now sees the man he wants to chase, gradually running it off into the distance. But out the corner they go, and as they do, well, Zilka right now keeping an eye on Weston behind as well. Clark, meanwhile, he's having another look. In fact, he's not having a look. He's got Ricardo Luis Pera looking for a move on him. And we look behind, and it's going to be a battle on the McLaren versus the Aston Martin and the Extras Motorsports driver here in the 1-2-2. I think right now he will be starting to sweat a little bit here, given the fact that pressure is not going to go away anytime soon. And Luis Pera right now is taking a little look here, having a look there, and I think he knows he's got a bit of a pace advantage here. But it'll be very interesting to see exactly how this race evolves over the full 60 minutes, because we are expecting, as part of the pit stops, that drivers may change 1 or 2 tyres, but it's not a long enough pit stop to change all 4. This Mexico circuit, nobody's really driven for long distances in the past apart from their practice sessions, and with the relatively cool conditions we have here today, it's a circuit that's not going to be really offering much grip, and that is going to make it a very challenging circuit at best. But Luke Sherlock, meanwhile, now catches up to this. So Clark right now getting the top 3 of Premier to Constantina back together, and his strategy might have to be to really force everyone to fight, as meanwhile Hendrik Zilka fighting there with Thomas Weston. Weston diving up the inside, and Zilka being caught out a little bit, gets elbowed slightly wide, and will roar in the way on through. Right now Hendrik Zilka just, I think to himself, okay, well, that worked out that way in particular, and Mark Collicott now sees him and says, mind if I play? I think Zilka at this point will be saying over his shoulder, no, wait your turn. And I think Mark Collicott may be saying, I wasn't asking. But as they head down towards turn number 1, no change between them. Back at the front of the field, Helder Gonzalez makes his way out the left-hand side of your camera shot, and meanwhile Christian Furs, your pro leader, has Mikey Story back behind him. So Story might have started in pole, Furs got ahead of him early on, but now Story's back with him here. So it seems as though that BMW took a little bit longer to get warmed up. As we do show you the class standings here, and the fastest lap of the race is owned by Mikey Story at the moment. The valid fastest lap of the race, we should add. Helder Gonzalez may have just set a faster lap by comparison, but it was invalidated, as meanwhile Christian Furs there invalidates his own current lap by running a bit wide coming out to turn number 7, but who can blame him? He's under a lot of pressure. That Ferrari 296 right now is mounting those curves, trying to use them for extra rotation, and Story is so close. He has got that BMW absolutely dialed in when it comes to these medium speed apexes, but the problem is he hasn't got the brakes here to beat that Ferrari at the game he wants to play. But as I head into the stadium section, will he look for the dive? The answer is no. He knows there's a long straight coming up. What's the point in fighting if all it's going to do is cost you both time? And well, if you're wondering why they run wide, they're coming out of turn 15 into 16. It's intentional. It is with track limits to cut on the left-hand side of that raised curb, and when it does, it naturally opens up the final corners even more compared to the standard racing line. But meanwhile, Ryan Davis versus Jacko Taylor, they come out the final corner, side by side they go, and as they do, new fastest laps coming in left, right and centre from drivers, as Jacko Taylor gets ahead of Ryan Davis then into second of elite, 4th overall. And we'll pound their way down the start-finish straight here. 10 minutes complete. A long way still to go in this race. And right now it looks like Jacko Taylor might have just got the upper hand for a brief moment, albeit these two teammates, of course. So therefore, they'll want to work together. And towards the end of the race, I think that's where the gloves will come off and we won't potentially see any papaya rules between them. But as they head down towards turn number 4, well, we'll have to wait and find out what's going to happen there. As meanwhile, we need to get you a replay, ladies and gentlemen, of some of the moments from the start of the race, which explain why we've had a few drivers drop down the order. Starting off with a bit of an incident for none other than Noah Blackwell. And well, without further ado, let's go to a replay. Now, this was heading down towards turn number 1 at the start. Noah Blackwell towards the very back of the field. Oh, no, that's not right at all. And in the end, get turned around. They're clipped by the Aston Martin behind. And, well, went straight on there with the contact. And, well, in fact, that's Noah Blackwell's Aston Martin that clipped the McLaren there. I do apologise. I think that's Max Galgay who got caught up. And, in fact, we are going to get on board here, Max Galgay, into the break-ins over split straight esports. Yes, and that's the McLaren that went round. So that explains why the two came together. And, well, the contact had broken the front suspension of Noah Blackwell's Aston Martin. So in the end, both drivers coming together and had no real place to go other than into the barriers and all to pieces. We then had this happen to Philipp Schwörke, and this was the explanation as to why he fell from the lead of Elite. And we're headed down into the braking zone here towards turn number 4, all over the back of the front. That was Christian Furz's car, and the rear of the car just went around. A very strange moment there for Philipp Schwörke, and in the end had to take to the grass, which would have given him a slowdown for track limit, and that forced him all the way back down the order. At a very frustrating start to his race. Understandably, we then had this for Alan Lever. This happened to Alan only moments later, coming out of turn number 6. So there was 4 and 5. Then what happened to 6? Contact side by side with Jack Barker. Got a little bit scrappy between them. I think Alan might have just come across on the braking a bit aggressively and not realised that Barker could only go straight on. It's very hard to tell that camera angle, to be fair. I'm not pointing the finger at Alan nor Jack. Both drivers out, I think, did their best to avoid the contact, but it does seem as though in the end two wanted to go into one space, and unfortunately they can't make that happen. We also had this for Daniel Pays on lap number 1. This was in the stadium section or exited it, and I think this is the big incident that happened right at the end of the lap. We saw bits of cargo everywhere, and that synchronised spin in there, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you that was not intentional. Oh my good lord, that Ford Mustang, whoever that was, cut into the inside, and then we had what was one of the racing cars coming in. That explains a lot very quickly, and that's the nightmare start for many a driver's race, as in fact we now head back to your live racing in one brief moment. And as we do, well, things take a little bit of time there to get back to the racing, but we are back at it. And goodness me, what a set of moments there as all drivers now push on as much as possible. And well, we head our way then on to lap number 9, and Helder Gonzalez continuing to just churn the laps away. And well, ahead of Mikey Story now off camera. Mikey Story has passed Christian Furze. We haven't caught that. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a replay of that, I believe. But Story now your leader in Pro Class, and Christian Furze falling a little bit further back as Jacko Taylor and Ryan Davies has now started to queue up here, and I would imagine with the fighting between these two leading pro drivers that they may have stubbed each other's toes and forced themselves back towards the elite. And it is Van Sander are also right there with them, as is Casper Brotner. So we now do have a 6-car pack chasing second place, of which Mikey Story is the man who wants to try and hold on to it. As for the lead of the Premier class, well, this is definitely getting intriguing because Luke Sherlock, Luca Louis Pera and Samuel Clark still together here as they make their way through turns 1, 2 and 3. No difference between them at the moment, and well, if you look Sherlock at this point, one of the benefits you have of running this close to your rivals is that you can really now start to think, do I want to play the strategy game or do I want to play the aggressive game? We are almost 15 minutes into this race. It's a long distance, an hour, not the longest on the calendar of course, in terms of racing year in year out for these drivers. They do have plenty of what is 12+ hour events in the iRacing officials, including the likes of Petit Le Mans. However, for Luke Sherlock, the full process here will be over this hour. He's got time to really play this out, and we do know the BMW is not overly aggressive on fuel usage. It's not the best by any means, but it's not the worst compared to the likes of, say, the Ford Mustang, and therefore what he could do here is try and do some fuel saving, but he won't be doing it when he understeers that wide. The downside of being this close in all that dirty air is the front end of the car will wash out and want to go straight on into those medium speed corners, and right now for Luke Sherlock, definitely a bit of a frustrating moment there. bit further down the order, Edward Berry trying to make a bit of progress as Alex Brown has just moved his way into third in Evo, as we're to understand it. And in fact, here's the evidence to say, albeit as he makes way out the corner, he's now under pressure again for the man he just passed. Carl Tivoli here looking for the move, but Brown cuts across. Tivoli backs off there. I think respect to the fact that his nose is going to be chopped off. And well, Brown makes a complete hash brown of the run through turns 7 and 8, completely straight lines it. Well, that is going to be a slowdown most likely, and if not, it is going to be a sizable track limit infringement that's going to come up. And well, we can see Brown all out sorts of the problem with the S sequences. Once you get one corner wrong, you get all of them wrong. It's very hard to readdress your line. And well, Tivoli back up the inside here. Brown fighting under braking. The Sun Steady Racing drive will make it too wide into the stadium section. And well, Tivoli right now is going to cause a queue behind him. Joel Loudon is right there. And well, will Loudon find his way through? I don't think so, because the next car is going to be Rob Windsor firstly. He is the UKSimRacing green machine right behind, and then it's Loudon in the Aston Martin. Windsor being a lap down as a result of the opening incident, but Brown all the way around the outside here. And now Tivoli, with a straight line speed of that Ferrari, it takes a long time to build up the speed, but his game plan here as we jump aboard with the 002 machine will be to stay in the tow, build up the speed, and potentially look for it under braking. Can he get it done here? And well, the answer is going to be no, it's not enough time, and this Ferrari just doesn't have the speed. But Brown is going to give an opportunity by going very deep there into one, scuppers his line into two, but he nails the apex. Now Tivoli makes his way on around, and well, as they come out the corner, I think there's been a bit of a moment for Joel Loudon behind, who's dropped a bit further back. In fact, I can see Loudon there in the rear of the picture. His headlights broken on the car, because it looks like that car's in pitch blackness. Yes, it is. Oh, in fact, no, it's not. My apologies. That is John Watt's Porsche that's missing its headlights. So something's gone wrong with those. Loudon in the Aston Martin has still got his headlights on there, very much so. And well, these drivers right now pushing each other to the limit, and John Watt find himself fighting, which I think he'll be very happy about. What he won't be happy about, however, he's not fighting drivers in his class. He's having to try and fight his way past Evo drivers rather than fight with the Premiers. Into the pit lane has come Luke Sherlock as I look at my content booth window. In fact, that's not how you come into the pit lane, because he's gone around there as he's tried to make his way out the final corner. Was he aided in his adventure? I don't know, but the Pennzoil machine brings itself back together, which is great to see. But that drops him all the way from third place in the Premier class, all the way down to 6th in class and 28th overall. So Sherlock is going to be absolutely fuming at that one. As Steve Hughes makes his way on past, Jack Barker a little bit further back. He's fallen back to 12th place in the Pro class. Not quite sure how he's ended up there, but he has fallen back after making some early gains, and Nathan Anstis has just served what will be his one and only pit stop most likely. He's decided to go for it very early on an undercut strategy. Will we see any others follow? We will find out. As hold up, that's Carl Tivoli there. Oh my goodness, there's bits of bumper coming off cars. That is Gareth Newton's car missing the front bumper as it makes its way to the pit lane. Not quite sure what's happened to Tivoli, but we're seeing the consequences of it all, and that is multiple drivers getting caught up. But back to Samuel Clark we go, and where there were originally 3 fighting for the Premier lead, with Luke Sherlock falling backwards, it's now down to 2. It's Clark versus Luis Pereira, and these two drivers continue to push each other the distance. But Nathan Scott and Thomas Weston are watching on at a distance and thinking, what can they do to get involved? Well, we'll try and get an answer on what they can do very shortly, because we need to look to the front of the field, and Ryan Davies and his Van Zander, they're looking to exchange places here. Van Zander going up the inside in the yellow BMW here. Can he get it done, the pro driver? This will be important for him overall. It'll move a little bit closer to Jacko Taylor, and then subsequently Christian Furs, the man he really wants to battle, who's running third overall, as you can see on the overall standings out on the left-hand side of your screen. But out of turn number 3 they go, and Casper Brotner's right there. Right now, Ryan Davies, I don't think he's got an answer at this point. I think a lot of these drivers haven't got answers to each other. All they've got is questions, and nobody has got the right answer to the exam. Looking a bit further back, Richard Simnor's another driver who finds himself in a very weird place, as he goes fighting here with Andy Jones, fellow Ferrari driver for DCW Racing, just in front. And also between the two is Christian Maltrek. And well, Maltrek trying to get involved there as Simnor tucks in behind. From them, it's then Krista Halsoy and Darren Sharples. This is a 5-car pack, which, well, if you put all these 5 drivers together in a bowl and mix them up, you are going to get a very explosive chemical reaction, because you've got some very respectful racers here, and they all know the absolute limits. Halsoy and Sharples, they're no strangers to each other. Simnor and Jones, DCW Racing teammates who've raced in plenty of series. And Maltrek has a bit of a moment there sideways. He's missing the rear of the car. Well, that will definitely not be helping the rear end downforce, but the point being that Maltrek almost losing it there, coming through what's turned 7 and 8. Thankfully gathers it back together, but he'll lose out versus Halsoy and Sharples and fall falls to 8th place in the Pro class, or 17th overall. So Christian Maltrek, a little bit of a wobble there in a car that's definitely not in the best of conditions, and will right now falling down those places, having started all the way in 3rd place in class. But with his brief misdemeanor, it gives us an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to take a look back at some moments earlier on, particularly the Sherlock incident, followed by what happened to Carl Tivoli and Gareth Newton, as we do see their confirmation. The damage on the car for Maltrek has forced him to pit, but he will take his fast repair, and with it, will be a strategic pit stop. So as we take a look back at what only happened moments ago, here we go to Luke Sherlock. And this was, well, the incident already happened, so Sherlock had already been sent around. Can we get an earlier moment with regards to the incident? Yes, we can. And here we are. It was through turn number 16. Giving chase, gets the power down. The rear left tyre lights up too soon. It goes sliding around, misses the inside barrier by a hair's width. So well done to Luke for dodging that. It would have been far, far worse. And as he tried to get it back together, it took a long... Goodness me, that was Nathan Astis coming on in. He reacted just like we did there, I think, in the car, in terms of the last possible moment seeing the car park there. No yellow flags visible. And Nathan Astis really having a bit of a moment there. Meanwhile, that happened, and then this happened to Carl Tivoli only moments later. And this was Tivoli fighting at the time with, I believe, one of the UKSimRacing drivers, and on the back of Alex Brown, tries to go up the inside, doesn't get it, too tight a steering angle, car goes round, collects the front bumper of a Porsche, that would have been the car of John Watt, and then subsequently Gareth Newton steams straight ahead into the scene of the incident, and it all goes so horribly wrong between all of them. We also did have this on lap number 11, this was Jack Barker, and I think this might explain why Barker subsequently towed to the pits recently. This was the stadium section for the Made for Racing machine. Came out at turn number 15, drops off the exit of the apex curve, and the car just goes around, and I think that's done some damage to the suspension. So a bit of a frustrating moment there for Jack Barker. Hopefully we'll see him back in the race a little bit later on. Let's head back to your live racing. So as we do return, still plenty of distance to be covered here at the Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez, the circuit named after the two Mexican brothers, the home heroes, if you will, who unfortunately both lost their lives over different decades in motorsport, but they'll always be remembered by the name of the circuit, the Rodríguez brothers indeed. And right now, it does seem as though this race is taking a turn for the strategy as we make our way into the second third. 21 minutes complete. We've still got another 39 plus a final lap to go. We are expecting the best part of 35 laps here today, if we do the quick mathematics. And Christian Vers right now, he's expecting Jacko Taylor to be all over the back of it like a bad rash, and so he is as they head up towards turn number 7. And Mikey's Story is starting to pull away a little bit here, as I would imagine that tyres are now starting to feel a little bit scrubbed as they head in towards these S's. You can see their drivers running slightly wider than normal lines. That'll be a combination of dirty air plus also pushing hard. The cars are getting lighter as well, the fuel's coming out. It naturally changes the behaviour of the cars. None more so than, of course, what is the Porsche 992 with its frontward-based fuel tank, and the fact that it has a very unique aero balance where, as the fuel dries out of the car, naturally the weight of the front end of the car starts to lighten, and therefore the aero balance of the car will pitch backwards towards the rear of the car more, because the weight concentration is still over the rear axle, but even more so. So for the Porsche drivers, they definitely have to try and set up the car with knowledge that as the race goes on, they get a much lighter car and they get a much twitchier front end compared to the rear of the car, which makes the Porsche a very difficult car to command. But if you get a mastery of it, of course, you will prove to be a very quick driver, particularly through corners. But quick drives on the straight, it's Joe Nathan right now. He's still chasing after Charles Philippert. As Philippert from the DDK Racing Team BMW holds that outside line, and well, looking absolutely smooth at the moment as they make the way on down. But here he looks to the inside of Philippert in towards turn number 1. Well, both drivers enter side by side there, but it's a relatively straightforward move. And well, the man with the roaring bear on the side of the car makes his way forwards. They're clawing his way through the field to put the animal puns in. But now can Philippert come back at him? And the answer is no, he can't, as Ryan Davies there has the cover of Casper Brockner in towards turn number 4. Brockner looking for an opportunity, but for Ryan Davies, he says, no, you do not. But what's happening elsewhere in the field as we do look to the class standings once again? Well, in the Evo class, we have noticed that we've had a bit of a shake-up. Alex Brown has dropped all the way down to 5th place from 3rd. I don't think we'll call the replay of what exactly has happened to Alex Brown on Sloan Steve Racing Machine, but he has dropped behind both Jordan Lee Jones, who started from towards the back of the field in the Evo class. He's suddenly up into 3rd place. Good on Jordan for that. And Joel Loudon, who's also moved forward. Now, if we say what is a bit of a hello to a message there from Alex Brown, which is missed by crash. So it's got a roll for Alex Brown. We've missed it. And, well, not to be caught with embarrassment, but definitely, I think, one of those situations whereby He'll be a bit kicking himself with the fact that it's gone wrong. Meanwhile, things going a little bit interesting here. That's Philipp Schwörke trying to battle his way. Matt Hoyland, oh, that's getting elbows out. Schwörke around the outside there, but he's going to have to go a long way round. And he did. Hoyland does back off the throttle for Dexterous Motorsports and lets Philipp Schwörke go through. I don't think that's obligingly as we jump aboard here with the 5th place Pro Machine, chasing after what is the 7th place Elite car. Well, Schwörke there pulls to the right side of the circuit. I think he's saying to Mr. Hoyland, look, I do not want to play. If you seriously want to fight over this, you're going to have to go around the outside. And I think Hoyland right now is trying to send a message to him, which is, look, I'm just holding my outside line. You don't need to fight this. Even that little shake of the car there, trying to send a bit of a message. And in the end, Schwörke gets the message. He takes the proverbial racing Morse code and takes the race in line. Otherwise, they'd lose even more time. And Jonathan Lepetz, of course, is Hoyland's target, who is the 4th place pro driver, only 2.5 seconds up the road. And he will be trying to chase him down as quickly as he can. But understandably, Philipp Schwörke will need to work with him. All 30, these two are going to be back to square one, which is fighting each other until they see the pit stops. All 30, that checkered flag. Will be the pit stops first, but if they come out back together, you can imagine there's going to be even more fireworks there as a small error from Hoyland sees him run wide and pick off and off track for his misdemeanors. Meanwhile, coming back to the leader of the Premier class, well, this is Samuel Clark, and behind him he has got a very fast charging Thomas Weston, who's looking to be in a very happy place at the moment. It must be said, Weston leading the Evo class. He's got a comfortable gap of 18 seconds over Edward Berry, who's in second in Evo, who we haven't really talked about, Berry, but the point being he's doing well. But Thomas Weston right now are really in control of this Evo class. Pit stop still to come, of course, but he now faces a little bit of a conundrum, and that is he is sandwiched by Premier drivers. The reason we call this a conundrum is the fact that he wants to move forward. You'd see, look at the pace and the body language of the car. What he's saying at this point is, I want to come through. I've got more pace than the guy in front of me. Samuel Clark, of course, doesn't want to fight Weston, but Weston's going to go for it. It goes all in. It goes very deep. Elbow there to Clark, and as a result, that is now going to put Samuel Clark and Ricardo Luz Pereira on a battling course here. As Weston does come through, but goes deep. Clark has to cover off. Weston there on the outside of him, plus also Luz Pereira on the inside of him. Ricardo Luz Pereira in the end looked to the move, but he couldn't quite find it as he makes his way out of the final 2 corners. But what we've tried to say, and then Weston just brought it to life, Sadie. I promise you we did not time that, and we don't know the script here. But the problem is that with Weston trying to force a move on like that, it's going to cost him time to do damage to the car. And now for Samuel Clark and Luis Pereira, it's going to compress them together, and it doesn't work out for the Premier leader here. He's going to be fuming at that one, in the fact that it's forced him backwards towards the man who's chasing him. And here comes Luis Pereira looking up the inside. Too far back, but a good feint there as Weston runs a bit deep in towards turn number 2. And, well, Weston right now definitely looking to go absolutely battling every step of the way. But all the drivers roaring the way down right now. Edward Berry, meanwhile, your 2nd place runner in the Evo class in the UKSimRacing machine there. Well, he has a comfortable, what is a 40-second gap to Jordan Jones, who's in 3rd of the Evos. But do remember that we do have a few Evo drivers who have pitted, and we have some that haven't pitted. And your top 2 definitely haven't pitted. Jordan Jones, we believe, has not pitted yet because he started from the pit lane. He's made his way through, but he's fallen a long way down. I think a number of drivers have been caught up, as this is going to be Luke Sherlock trying to go around the outside. Well, that's a good attempt at a cutback there coming through turn number 5, but Edward Berry calls out, just simply says, no, what I'm going to do is intentionally let the car go wide with you. And, well, right now, Edward Berry definitely having a bit of fun with Luke Sherlock. And, well, whilst these drivers are not fighting each other in the championship, they're definitely fighting each other on the road. And who can blame them as we come back to a very similar situation between the leaders of Evo and Premier, and they're going toe-to-toe again. They're fighting. And, well, here comes Mark Collicott. Collicott on the inside there. Clears Luis Pereira immediately. And you can tell Ricardo Luis Pereira, that Aston Martin, knows when it's the driver of another class, he doesn't want to play, because all it will do is hurt his race. He's being very smart. Is number 121 Aston Martin. Hendrik Zilker is caught up to the back of this. And this is now getting very messy between them, because it is causing the Premier top 3 to all come back together. And meanwhile, the Evo leader, he's naturally losing time to Berry, who's already slashed 4 seconds off of that 18-second gap on this lap, and he hasn't even completed the lap as of yet. Clark's back ahead. Here comes Weston again. Weston is absolutely locking horns here, and, well, can't go for the move. Clark's going to hold it for now, but he gets very close to the back of his rival. It really is gloves off a door between these two. But as they exit the corner, meanwhile, we come back to Richard Simnor. Up to, we should say. He's at turn number 4 and 5. Krista Houseway and Darren Sharp was keeping him close company as the 9th place elite driver. He's had a bit of a frustrating day at the moment, as has Raz Harper and Yavi Sierra, who we both lost earlier on in this race. Both of them have retired their cars, unfortunately. We won't be seeing them anymore until round number 3. But from outside the top 10, let's come all the way back into it. Ryan Davies versus Casper Brotner. This is a battle that has been building for a bit of time. And we're almost now to the halfway point of this race. And well, in terms of strategy, the only drivers who have pitted thus far have been drivers well outside the top 20. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a circuit map available to us. It is being crafted for the overlay, and it will eventually arrive. But the point being here in the fact that I don't think anybody inside the top 20 right now wants to gamble pitting to then come out into a load of traffic. Well, that's the worry. So therefore, they'd all rather fight each other on the circuit, and Casper Brotner tucks into tow here behind Ryan Davies. He's so close that the man he could reach out and touch the rear wing. He peels the inside here. Davies will be looking to his right and wondering who's going to be the smarter on the brakes. And in here will be Casper Brotner who gets that move done as they head through turns 1, 2 and 3. But I can imagine that Davies here playing the bigger picture game. He's playing the 4D chess game, which is focus on working with the driver who you're fighting with to move a bit further forward and save some fuel. Onwards they go, and as they do, we say hello there to Sam Clark, and hope you're doing well, Sam. And well, good to see so many of you give your thoughts there in regards to the racing. And well, quite a few saying that Matt Hyland, according to legend, is 8 foot tall. Well, if so, I can tell you one thing: he would definitely need to sit in a very peculiar position in that car. But meanwhile, Matt Hyland seated positions aside. Thomas Weston back up the inside of Samuel Clark. 2 wide, they go through turns 1, 2, and into 3. Clark back head down, but Weston right there. And here comes Mark Collicott. Collicott looking around the outside here. The DCW Racing driver is going to try and use his pro pace to head around the Evo leader. Slight tap between the two of them here. The DCW Racing at Ford Mustang is fully alongside. Weston going deep into the corner. That's now going to slow them all down, and Clark could be hoping that Weston just looks backwards now and he can break away and leave this alone. Louise Perrin and Hendrik Zilka close together. Austin Graff has caught up to this at an absolute huge rate of knots in the Axis Sim Sport machine, and Graff right now on a charge of the American driver. He sees a potential Premier podium right in front of him, and it is being practically put to him on a platter as he makes his way through, because, well, one has to wonder if he gets any close to this, does he just come into the pits immediately and goes, if they're all being held up by Thomas Weston, I might as well gamble on the strategy. And I'm surprised, I'm going to put my hand up here and say, I'm surprised Ricardo Luis Pera has not fought this, nor has Hendrik Zilka. If you're going to be stuck in a queue like this and they're going to keep fighting, why not come in? The only thing one could imagine is the reason they're not is because they're worried about traffic. Alternatively, they're using this to save fuel because it is effectively for the lead of the Premier class, and they'd rather take the track time and use the fuel saving. Well, it's their call, and we'll see how the strategy works out. But Mark Collicott immediately, well, he decides, you know what, I'm not going to play game. Hendrik Zilka also decides, you know what, I'm not doing this either. They've both made a call, and I think this is the right call for both drivers. They get themselves out of the traffic jam, and what they do now is they put pressure on their rivals to either force the way past Thomas Weston or come in on the next lap. They change the narrative of the strategy here. Meanwhile, Krista Hausoy, he's got Darren Sharples closed up to him in a completely different part of the circuit, heading down towards turn number 4, and well, Nathan Scott a bit further back, you can see in the rear of the picture, but these two fighting over 6th place in pro right now, less than a second between the two of them, and we'll really try to chase down Matt Hoyland, who is the best part of none other than 10 seconds up the road. As we see a car going wide there, that's for blue flags that we do have. What is the machine now? I do believe Rob Wins are taking a bit of an excursion, and will Rob being very cognizant of drivers making the way up behind him. But back to your leader, meanwhile, as he completes another lap shortly. This will be his 20th turn of the circuit under race conditions. Now to go on to a 21st lap. Helder Gonzalez still holding a very happy elite lead of 8.5 seconds over Jacko Taylor. And between the two of them, you have Mikey Story and Christian Furs, the first and second pro drivers. These two are definitely enjoyed a very close run race, and I wouldn't be surprised that this is all going to come down to what will be some very minor margins between them, as we do say hello to Simon Hartley and Edward Berry there in the YouTube chat. Well, particularly to Simon Hartley, we did say hello to Edward a little bit earlier on. Hope you're doing well, Si. But as we do see Mikey Story heading through turn number 1, he finds a bit of traffic in front of him. That will be the car that was wounded earlier on, Max Gelge, who's having some connectivity issues by the looks of things there. Hopefully, that's not a sign of things to come and worries to come. But what we can see is your second and third place drivers are going to try and go around the outside here. And, well, one's going to pick his way through. And third says, no, wait for me. I'm also coming through, please. And in the end, he does so. And Max Gelge, to be fair, very aware of the cars around him, and good awareness all round from these drivers. Philipp Schwörke, he's still on the attack, and now he's finally caught up to an elite driver. He's on the back of Joe Nathan as we jump aboard in the Ford Mustang for VENARI Racing. The sound of 5 litres and a V8 engine. The Coyote engine there for Ford Performance absolutely resonated to our ears as he makes his way out of turn number 6, takes all the exit curb and plenty more. You can see it actually slopes away from the circuit there, and that pulls the car slightly off the road, and that's why you've got to be careful with these exit curves. They're not as flat as they look. And as he heads through turn 7 and 8 and now into 9 and 10, these quick S's, well, it's all about nailing that entry. If you can nail the entry, you can nail the exit very quickly. And Schwörke right now just not close enough. As you'd expect, front entry rear wheel drive. Its cornering is not as strong as its straight line speed. And Joe Nathan in that Ferrari looking happy or thereabouts. Although I say that, misses apex, and here comes Schwörke looking up the inside. It's all for naught, but it's all about some mental pressure he's trying to apply here as the gap between these two, half a second. And nothing between them, but we are coming towards the end of what is another 5 minutes of racing, and we're getting towards the end of these fuel tanks right now. They're going to be quite light, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a mass exodus to the pit lane within the next 5 to 8 minutes, as that's normally the length of the fuel tanks. Normally no more than 40 minutes of racing, and then the fuel tank completely dries out. Joe Newman looking up the other end of the start-finish straight. He's still got Casper Brotner behind him. This is the fight for 3rd in Elite and 6th overall. They're still running quite handsomely together, these two. The battle of the Aston plus the BMW and the Empire Motorsport machine. I do love the fact they've even incorporated the Union Jack into the edging of the wings there, and showing a bit of national pride. It's Joe Newman as he comes down in towards turn number 4. Right now, Casper Brotner will be putting Danish pride on the line here as he makes way out to turn number 5. Close, but not quite close enough here, but you can see, or you can feel coming off of that BMW. Natural concertina effect, of course, means these cars are closer than they seem based on the cameras, and well, as they roar the way in towards turn number 7, Brockner is really pushing this versus Joe Newman. Well, for the fact he's got into elite class, Casper Brotner is not letting it daunt him. If anything, he's really letting it motivate him. But as he comes on through, you can see the queue of cars a little bit further back. Ryan Davies is the next car, 1.3 seconds back, hoping to help out Joe Newman. Well, his teammate for Empire Motorsport, and he has got a bit of traffic in front of him. That's Max Galgay, who he's going to have to clear. But Davies will very quickly make his way through there. And he takes all the apex curb with him at turn number 13. And now through 14, 15, and on to 16 he comes. But as they make their way towards the end of the lap, well, these drivers definitely right now give each other plenty to think about as they roar the way onto the next tour of the circuit. And, well, from them, well, things have got a little bit quiet elsewhere in the field, unless your name is Ricardo Luis Pereira, who's still out there behind Thomas Weston. I think this is going to ruin his chances of finishing in 2nd place here, and the driver he's now got to worry about is Hendrik Zilke. But saying that, Hendrik Zilke has come out right behind Nathan Anstis, and Anstis has pitted. That is going to be interesting now. Anstis has had 2 very short stops. They have been primarily for repair work on the car, but Zilke at this point, he finds himself in a bit of traffic. Is it going to cost him as much time as it will for Ricardo Luis Pereira? Well, that's something we're going to have to find out when Luis Pereira finally comes into the pit lane, but we're still waiting on that turn in the course of the race. But the fights definitely have calmed down for a brief moment. Into the pits we have had Nathan Scott. He's decided to bow out of the running order right now. Take a quick pit stop, and only 11.76 seconds stationary. It's a very short pit stop here in Mexico today for that 60% fuel tank. Indeed, it really is a splash and dash, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of drivers are not changing a single tyre, or they are only literally changing the one, because there's not that much time to do a tyre change here, and I think you might be just as fortunate to get away with the initial starting set of tyres as you are with changing 1 or 2 for the time you lose. Some longer pit stops out there have been for the likes of Luke Sherlock. Understandably, of course, for Luke, with that poor spin coming out of turn 16 and 17, and where he spun his way into the pit lane effectively, he's got nothing to lose by exhausting a bit more time in the pits to give himself a car that might be a bit more aggressive in terms of the way he could drive it and therefore gain a bit more lap time. When he's down in 7th place in the Premier class, that's not to belittle him, but he'll take everything he can get, and sometimes it's just good as a driver if you put a whole new set of tyres on the car, or even just 2 tyres of the car. It changes the feel of the car, it cheers you up a little bit, and suddenly you can get your head back down and go on the attack. But we'll see what he can do, because his first target will be, after the pit stops, it's Hendrik Zilke, but Zilke is at the moment 24 seconds up the road. That's a way to go. Steve Hughes might be a little bit more in the grasp of reality for Luke Sherlock in terms of strategy-wise, because Hughes isn't yet to pit, and he is only 28 seconds up the road, if that. Richard Jones, meanwhile, well, he's a little bit further by 2 seconds, as that's the car spinning around. Not quite sure who that was, but somebody's had to tow to the pit lane there, trying to discern who it was. It's a McLaren that decided to hide itself from the camera, going through the S's, and, well, as soon as I can find out who that is, ladies and gentlemen, we'll let you know. But that was definitely a surprise, and not a welcome one to be certain. Meanwhile, a welcome surprise, one to be certain of here, is that we have a fight for fourth in the pro class. John Philipp Hertz has got Matt Hoyland behind him, and, well, we ride aboard, looking back for the rear of the DDK Racing Team BMW M4 Evo, and, well, out to turn 4 and 5 they go. Philipp Hertz right now under pressure. Two German marks, two very similar characteristics. Both very strong on the straights, very quick in the acceleration zones, but the difference is in the corners. The BMW, a very snappy car. As we find out there, Philipp Hertz gets it wrong. Heading towards turn number 7, has to completely cut off turn number 8. I wouldn't be surprised there if he might have picked up a small slowdown for that indiscretion, and he's now going to try and burn it through the S's about Hoyland right behind him. And, well, coming down towards the stadium, he's going to have to let it go. Hoyland will take the place there, and, well, that is only for a brief moment, unless Hoyland can outbrake Philipp Hertz, and Philipp Hertz decides in the end, you know what, it's not worth it, otherwise I'm only going to risk spearing him off the road. And I think Giles there being very smart with how he served that in the end, decided, you know what, I've got to lose the place. I might as well lose it with the least amount of time lost as possible. Further up the order in the elite class, look at this. Joe Newman, Jacko Taylor and Casper Rotten all together. And, well, if we were wondering if the two Empire Motorsport teammates were working together, they most certainly are not, because that's Newman weaving one way, then the other. Here comes Taylor looking down the inside. The battle of the Aston Martins here. Newman on the right, it's Taylor on the left. They swap themselves around. And, well, now it's going to be right, left, right here. 2-1, they go through turns 1 and 2. Jacko Taylor there runs out of tarmac to work with. Oh, my goodness, and that is Casper Rotten there. Gets too close for comfort. Side-by-side contact with Jacko Taylor. I don't think there's any malice meant, but it sends Casper Rotten on around, and, well, to the barrier. He gets it back immediately, points in the right direction, but with a lot of frustration there for Casper Rotten, it's all good. Oh, my goodness! And who's that? That's Matt Hoyland! Hoyland's into the barrier there. Hoyland comes up through the scene the instant. He ends up scuppering things, and he suddenly falls a long way down the order. For Matt Hoyland, it could all be in pieces here. Well, what has been a very strong race, and suddenly it all falls apart as quickly as that. But we're going to need to get a replay of those 2 moments, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go then. Firstly, for a replay of how Casper Rotten ended up in arrears. Now, this was coming through the S's sequence here, as he did. You'll see Jacko Taylor goes a bit deep. Rotten looks at the cutback, goes out the corner, tries to get the throttle down. Taylor, I think, straightens up the car, and the two end up on a collision course. Matt Hoyland, meanwhile, as this camera caught it all, Hoyland made his way then out of the corner, gets the power down, and as he does so, Brotter just taps him there as he straightens the car out. Hoyland comes across there, I think, to take the natural racing line, but just comes across a little bit too soon, and it ends up in tears for Hoyland as much as it does for Brottner. Well, that's unfortunate for Hoyland because he was running such a good race, but sometimes that's the way it goes as we make our way back to your live racing. And as we do, we'll still plenty more to come, there's no doubt about it, but we have had plenty of drama here so far in Mexico, and, well, the Red Bull Ring absolutely delivered, and Mexico is delivering a treat as well as a bit of sunlight tries to come out. We've got so much cloud out there, and that's the car going very sideways and almost parking in the arena. I believe that is what's Porsche that went very sideways there, but thankfully he's able to get it back together, and, well, as he does so, now waits to get going again, and I can't imagine that's a very happy parking position for John Watt, as he does get the speed up again. Well done to him for the patience, to be fair. Many drivers would not have that patience, but he's definitely got the patience of a saint. But as he comes out the corner, meanwhile, we come back to drivers who are behind him on circuit, albeit a long way further back, and this is the fight for third place in the Evo class. It's great to see. It's Joel Loudon versus Jordan Jones. Loudon, he's had a very straightforward and stable race. Jones, meanwhile, has had one of those races where he's had to claw his way through the field. However, different fortunes has meant that both drivers now are on a collision course of battling here, and that is what we like to see, as we see them fighting over none other than 33rd place. But as they come towards the end of this lap, they go on to a 26th tour of the circuit. Power on down, plenty of cars in the pit lane as well. We are seeing those fuel tanks starting to dry up. Austin Graff, Thomas Weston, Edward Berry all in. Where is Weston going to come out the pit lane? That's a question. Well, here he comes, and as he does, look at this. He makes his way on down, and, well, it's going to be George Jones and Joe Loudon unlapping themselves. But the point being, if he's lost that much time and he's being unlapped by them, what's this going to mean for Hendrik Zilka? Well, Zilka is already clear. So Zilka going for the undercut strategy. that has worked out massively, as it has for Austin Graf. And, well, Ricardo Larice-Pereira, if he's not going to pit shortly, he's, I think, going to be worried now the fact he's going to fall a long way behind these guys. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Ryan Davies leads this race quite happily at the moment, albeit he's yet to pit, as Helder Gonzalez has come on in, as is Mikey Story, Jacko Taylor and Christian Furs and Joe Nathan. Those fuel tanks all running out. I think the Ferrari driver here from Empire Motorsport will go one more lap before he decides to peel it into the pits, and right now he's just enjoying the track time. I think with the traffic he's got in front of him, he's not going to be too worried about it, as that is going to be a pass being made very shortly on a Ferrari there of Carl Tivoli. Tivoli pulls aside completely, respects the blue flags, and well, now for Ryan Davies it's just a lap in clear air, which is exactly what you want when you are battling for what's a top 5 finish overall, and also for a podium in the elite class. You want a clear track to deliver your last couple of laps before you come into the pits and then go on to that final stint, and that could be enough to gain you a place or at least some racing time. Speaking of trying to gain places, Christian Maltrek were in the back of Casper Brockner again, and well, if we were winding back to season 15, these two would be fighting in class for position. Right now they're fighting across classes for overall position, and remember there is no extra points for beating say an elite driver if you're a pro, or vice versa. There's no overall points. It all comes down to your class finishing position where you score points in your respective championships. So right now these two drivers will need to figure out some sort of truce, or one is going to have to be a bigger aggressor than the other. Meanwhile, Viz Van Sander has actually leapt ahead of Jacko Taylor, Joe Newman and Joe Nathan, the third place pro driver. It hasn't worked out to get him close to Furs or Story, but this is a brilliant bit of strategic work here for Van Sander. He's leapt ahead as Taylor and Newman are fighting each other once again. Well, they may be teammates, but they're definitely not acting like teammates. To be fair, we're not complaining. We love to see a good old bit of battling. But as they make their way in towards the stadium section right now, I think Van Sander's going to be thinking, good, keep fighting. I don't want to have to deal with you both. And I think Jacko Taylor at this point might be saying to Newman, okay, you know what? Let's go on hiatus a little bit and then fight the guy in front of us. As Ryan Davies is into the pit lane, where will he fall into all of this? We will see as they power their way along. We look to the blimp camera. Where is Ryan Davies? You'll see him on the left-hand side of the picture if the smog's not too bad. There he is. But has he got enough of an overspeed here in order to come out ahead before turn 1? And the answer is he's not going to beat Van Sander. Van Sander does get ahead, but Ryan Davies does just about get ahead into the braking zone, or does he? Jacko Taylor says no, he doesn't. And in the end, like a pantomime villain, he steals it away, or does he? No, he doesn't as well, because now Ryan Davies takes it back, but he hops his way over the apex curb. Is that going to be a slowdown there for track limits? Because he did absolutely clatter the car over the sausage curb there. We'll wait and see. And well, as they make the way down, Jacko Taylor now looks to the outside. It's absolute war in the Empire Motorsport garage, and from one side of the garage to the other, they're all fighting absolutely tooth and nail for second place in the elite class. Well, I don't think anybody got the memo between them all, and well, as they make the way through, Joe Newman goes up the inside. He says, okay, Jacko, try this on for size. And well, in the end, he makes it count. They rub doors, they rub paint, and the sponsors won't be happy about that, because now the sponsor materials have been wiped off halfway down the road. My goodness, Ryan Davies with a brilliant bit of strategy work. Meanwhile, Joe Newman and Jacko Taylor just absolutely gritting their teeth and wanted to go all in. It's almost as if they've been invited to a boxing ring match here. However, they have kept it relatively clean so far. No punches below the belt. But coming from what is the Empire Motorsport, well, I was going to say coming away from it, it's not over yet, as here goes Newman defending to the inside. Taylor looking all the way around the outside again. They are absolutely pushing each other on the limit here as we ride on board with Jacko Taylor. And well, the number 3 driver here chasing after number 97. It adds up to 100 with their 2 door numbers, and they are giving it 100% out there. I can tell you that. And Jacko Taylor right now, I think, just thinking to himself, right, what am I going to do this time? How can I get past him? He's refusing to give in. I'm going to find a way through. There's no team orders here. It's all going to be done out of circuit with 13 minutes to go, and we suspect the best part of another 7 laps of racing as they go on to lap number 29. We do say hello there to Viz Van Sander, who says exactly what I was thinking with regards to the idea of them fighting each other and allowing him to get away, as we also say hello to Axis Simsports Andrea Montine. But as Jacko Taylor parks in behind here, no way back this time, and I think he might have just fallen out of hunting distance at least for a couple of corners. So with that, we're now, oh my goodness, right there, we were going to come back to the battle for second place in the Evo class. Joel Loudon has gone on a round, and Jordan Jones has been caught up in it. Now, both of these drivers have done very well to get into the podium positions, but for Joel Loudon, he reverses the car. He's got a lot of time before Jack Barker comes on through, and then most critically, Thomas Weston, who in all of his fighting, Weston's dropped to 4th in Evo. It has cost him so much time, all that fighting. Edward Berry, meanwhile, Immobile is now your Evo leader. You couldn't make this up. Edward Berry had leapt his way into the lead by an absolutely staggering margin, but that's what happens when you pit at the right time and you dodge all the chaos and traffic out there. Berry has just found a way through, or has he? Because from what I'm hearing in my ear right now, he took a very early pit stop in this race. Has he got enough to get to the end, or does he go again into the pits? If he has to go into the pits again, suddenly Jordan Jones could potentially take the lead of the Evo class right at the close of this race. But with that, we're going to take a look back at what happened only moments ago to Joel Loudon in his battle with Jordan Jones. It wasn't pretty, but we still need to find out what exactly went wrong between the two of them, and here we go. Now this was coming into the S's sequence. Loudon went deep initially at turn number 7, through 8 and into 9. Oh, the car snapped on him there. That is completely uncharacteristic. In fact, that was at the latter section. That was turns 9 and 10, and the car just completely went away. Can we get on board of that? I think we can. Let's listen. Oh, the car was already gone there. The camera was not showing us the fact he already lost it coming off the apex curb of turn number 10. And Joel Loudon, the SRI saving privateer of Ryan Driver, in the end, just going on around. And, well, it just happened to be that Jordan Jones was in the wrong place at the right time to be collected with him. So that explains the story there. And, well, back to your live racing, we do indeed go. So as we come on back right now to Edward Berry as he powers his way along. Berry, well, for him, it's definitely going to be a race now where if he can get this to the end with 11 minutes remaining plus the final lap, it's going to be a very positive outcome. But we emphasise if he can, because there is still time and a very early pit stop. But we won't tease it either way at the moment. We don't want to put the commentator's curse on it either. If he can pull this off, it is going to be a huge result in round number 2 of the championship, and indeed it will completely upset the apple cart with regards to how the Evo class played out after round number 1. Front of the field, Helder Gonzalez, he did have a little bit of a time loss as that's Jack Barker pointing the wrong way in the stadium section. You can see him in the rear of the picture. And Barker's race going from good to bad to disastrous, and indeed that is not a happy time he's having at the moment, the Lamborghini Huracan, and I suspect he's going to be wondering what was worst, his relationship with the Acura or his relationship with the Lamborghini at this point, because that was the story of his season 15 with the Acura, which was it was going around until it wasn't, and only when it didn't go around did he pull off one of the best results that he's had in his career. But we will see what will happen between them, as behind, Mikey Story running second, pro leader Christian Furs is right behind him, and these two have been like this since the opening lap of the race. Strategy has not separated them. It is incredible to see, as meanwhile Joe Newman, well, he's got ahead of Ryan Davies. Jacko Taylor's tucked in behind, and Ryan Davies right now all over the back of his fellow Empire Motorsport driver. They are pushing each other to the limit, but I think they're wary of the fact that all the fighting they're doing, they cost each other time, they cost each other tyre life, and also they've run us for some great entertainment. Now, speaking of entertainment, here comes Philipp Schwörke in the rear of your picture. Joe Nathan pulls the inside in the yellow Ferrari. That's going to be up the inside of a lap down car. That'll be the Porsche 992, being piloted by none other than, I believe, what is there? That's not John Watt's car, I can tell you that. That is Daryl Jacobelli, who's got around and, well, gets it wrong. They're coming out of turn number 5, gets it back together, but that's going to be a very frustrating one there for the Swaziland driver as he finally gets it pointed back in the right direction. As he does so, we then come back to the ongoing fight between some other drivers. Nathan Scott and Matt Hoyland are here together, and Hoyland, of course, shouldn't be in this battle, but he is as a result of his contact with Casper Brotner much earlier on in the race. And, well, Nathan Scott right now just trying to be the fly in the ointment and force Hoyland to have to back off. Darren Sharples is almost there, looking to attack him. This could get very intriguing between them before all is said and done. As we jump on board here with Darren Sharples, he's on the attack. He's looking to do everything he can here for Old Dudes in Cars Blue to try and pincer his way on through, but he has a bit of a precarious situation to work through here, because the problem is Hoyland is a very quick driver. We know Hoyland shouldn't be amongst these guys, not to be rude about Nathan Scott and Darren Sharples, but one that pace and first stint pace would indicate he should be well clear. So Sharples right now has to try and take what he can get out of this, which is, can he find a way to get past both of them as they fight? Well, Hoyland there side by side as they make their way in towards the stadium. If this is an opportunity, I don't know what is. And Nathan Scott there defending outside to inside, taps the rear of Hoyland's car, but Hoyland does squeeze his way through there. He said, right, I am going to make it a 2-wide gap whether you like it or not. I think Nathan Scott said, we're going to go all the way to the curb, and on the other side of it, but Matt Hoyland does get on through, and that shows you he knows he's faster than these two, and he wants past them as quickly as possible. The only thing he hasn't encountered yet is that Nathan Scott is not a driver who lets things go lying down, and here comes the Empire Motorsport Aston Martin on the charge here down the start finish straight in the tow. Hoyland pitched it one way, but now he's going to look to the inside. Is Nathan Scott tries to go out for it on the brakes, but the Mercedes is the better on the brakes there, and Darren Sharples now watches on here as the Mercedes sandwich forms. But as they make the way out to turn number 3, Nathan Scott will have one more opportunity here as they power the way along. There's no DRS for these machines, of course, even though it is a DRS zone. That's more for Formula 1 machines, but right now these cars pick up sizable tows when they're this close, and Matt Hoyland does stabilise 7th place in the Pro class at a very pivotal moment in this race. Given his next target is Krista Halsaway, 6 seconds up the road, but as they come through turn number 5, it's a poor run for Hoyland, and that is going to be Nathan Scott back up the inside, so Scott does get it back. Hoyland in the end falls back into the order, and Darren Sharples will be rubbing his hands together once again and thinking, okay, now my time to play. But I can imagine that Hoyland here is going to be absolutely, look at this, one eyebrow raised and thinking, how do I get involved? Joe Newman, meanwhile, into the pit lane. Newman did not have enough fuel. He didn't take on enough as he makes his way down. Or, in fact, is this a drive-through for instant points? I think it's a drive-through because that car's going straight on. And, well, as a result, Newman just makes his way on down. And as he does, well, he's going to be coming out of the back of a lot of cars here. Some on the lead lap, some 2 laps down, and some, well, all over the shop as they head up towards turn number 1. And Christian Maltret and Charles Philipp are at the front of this group of cars. These two are fighting for 4th place in Pro, 8th overall. And then we do see a little bit further back there what is Thomas Weston trying to pick his way on past. That's up the inside there, the VENARI Racing machine of none other than Philipp Schwörke. And Schwörke won't be too happy. He's having to fight with Evo driver here who's a lap down. I can imagine he might be fuming a little bit because this will cost him some pace, and Casper Brotner's right in front of him, 2 seconds up the road, and Schwörke would love to get back into 5th place here to try and maintain his championship lead going to Catalonia in a week's time. However, I think he's going to have to deal with a cork in a bottle, which is an Evo driver, and we'll credit where it's due to our driver Thomas Weston. He's definitely showing his fighting tenacity and also his pace. I think right now Philipp Schwörke would like him to back off if possible, or at least make it a little bit easier to be able to come through, given the difference in lap. But that's down to them, and if anything goes to the stewards' room afterwards, well, the stewards will have the final say on it. As Joe Newman and Richard Simnor are closing up here. Schwörke puts it on the inside. Concept between the two of them. Patience ran out there for Philipp Schwörke. You can understand why. And, well, in the end, he's come off the worst for it. And in the end, a little bit of impatience has cost him massively. But we don't know how long he was stuck there, and I can imagine he saw a bit of red, and in the end, the red has come back to pinch him on the backside. But that now moves Joe Newman and Casper Brotner ahead of him, and Richard Simnor will be closing with Andy Jones and the DCW Racing teammates close in tow together, and they'll be looking at Philipp Schwörke and thinking, you know what, we can claim a big scalp here today and gain some extra points as a result of it. And I think Schwörke's going to be looking in his rearview mirror and thinking, please Lord no, my day's going from good to bad to worse every lap I turn here in Mexico. As Schwörke's into the pit lane, that will either be for repair work or it will be for a drive-through penalty if he's gone above the 20 instant point cap. We'll see what happens there. We'll give you an update when we can, as Richard Simnor right now tries to run away from Jones a little bit more. Charles Philipp says Christian Maltret looking up his inside meanwhile. Going back to the fight for 4th in the Pro class here, and more time is running out as these drivers continue to push each other to the limit. And Maltrek thinking about a move now down towards the outside. Philipp, I think this is more Philipp trying to say to me, you're not passing me, don't try it. Meanwhile, I think Maltrek's saying I wasn't going to try it anyway. I'm just going to simply tuck onto the racing line and keep you guessing what I'm going to do. But Philipp definitely making it clear for 4th place here in the Pro class that he wants to hold on to this now. And Viz Van Sander, meanwhile in 3rd, is 10 seconds up the road. I don't think he's going to be caught here unless he makes a strategic blunder. But 4 minutes or so left on the clock. There's this lap for our leaders, plus another one to go, I believe. And right now, for Helder Gonzalez, he is almost at the very end of the racing distance here as he makes his way on around. And Van Sander looking very, very much forward towards chasing down Christian Furs and Mikey Story. But for Helder Gonzalez, for him, it's going to be one more tour of the circuit here, and everything seems to be coming up absolutely green as he roars his way through. Well, we will see what's going to happen then on this final lap of racing, because we are going to see a grand total of 35 laps here. Our clock just slightly out by the best part of what is 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologise for that. Our race time, it does have a little bit of a mind of its own every so often, but the point being right now, Helder Gonzalez, one more lap, and he will see that checker flag, and he'll see it successfully. But as these drivers come down. Mikey Story and Christian First still together, and they're only 1.3 seconds off of the overall leader here. They'd love to take a shot at him, they would, but I don't think they're going to have enough to be able to do it, as Christian First right now wants that lead of the pro class. They definitely, these three, have been a class of their own today. Giles Philipp, he has been passed off camera by Christian Maltrek. Maltrek did find his way through down the start finish straight, so they have just changed places as they head on through. That's not a big surprise there to the system, in the fact that Christian Maltrek now under pressure from Giles Philipp, who wants to come back in as quickly as he can. But will he be able to do so, as Matt Hoyland, meanwhile, tries to go all the way around the outside. David Scott to the outside now in turn. A bit of a door run between the two of them. Hoyland does get ahead for a brief moment, but it's not enough. Or is it? It might be. Here comes Darren Sharples as well. They're pushing each other to the limit, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have to look away from that battle, because they make the way through the last couple of corners. For Helder Gonzalez, this has been a race that's been absolutely controlled. Mikey Story's right there with him out of it. Christian First as well. But today, victory overall is going to go to elite driver, and for Helder Gonzalez and Tractix Racing, it's a victory well and truly earned ahead of the pro winner Mikey Story. Christian First takes third place. It'll then be on a brilliant piece of strategy. Fourth place overall, third in pro for Vince Van Sander, who absolutely showed that sometimes you just got to be smart with your pit stop and you get the job done. Ryan Davis is second in the elite right behind him. Then it will be Joe Nathan, who comes home in third place in the elite class, just ahead of Jacko Taylor, with Christian Maltrek in the end getting the upper hand on Giles Philipp in a brilliant race between the two drivers. Then it'll be Casper Brotner who rounds off your top 10, ahead of Joe Newman, best to rest 11th. We've got a bit of time before we do get to Richard Simnor, but here he finally comes with teammate Andy Jones in tow as they come out of the final corner. Well done to both of them, 12th and 13th. With Krista Halsoy, the next driver up in the running order. We do need to say that Edward Berry, by the way, comes on through. There he is, and he's your Evo winner. Edward Berry did make it on a single stop right at the start of the race, and for the Evo winner, what a drive from him. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that one. And, well, as all the drives coming through, Samuel Clark makes it about the final corner. And many asked, when would he get it wrong? When would he spin it? Well, don't think about spinning it any other way, because Samuel Clark is your premier winner today. And what a drive from him, ahead of Hendrik Zilke, who takes the runner-up spot there, leap into second on the strategy, and Austin Graff will make it third place in Premier, where a 21st place finish overall. A great effort from him. In the rest of the Evo class, Jordan Jones is heading to the finish shortly, and for Jordan Jones, what started in the pit lane is going to be converted into a second place finish in Evo. He's not going to quite believe it. Unfortunate the contact between himself and Loudon, but to be fair, an innocent instant between the two of them. And for Jordan Jones, I think this right now is going to feel so special in the fact that he's brought home a brilliant second place with Thomas West in the end, scuppering a win in Evo and finishing third despite all the fighting. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen. And as all the drivers cool it on down, well, there's some incredible stories out there today. Edward Berry being definitely one of the stories out there, as Alan Lever pulls up alongside him in the 183 and gives a big congratulations there to say, well done, Edward. You've done a phenomenal job today. I'm certain that's what he'll be saying over the radio. But the number 44 McLaren in Evo, just an absolutely different strategy today. Stayed out of trouble and got the job done. The same for Samuel Clark, brilliant pace throughout in the Premier class, and Hendrik Zilke, second place, deservedly in the end of that class. But as our circuit begins to fall silent, let's take a look to the scenic view, and with it, those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. So the results do come up on screen for round number 2 of the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship Season 16, as hosted by SimRacing International and brought to you on iRacing. Starts off with the overall finishing positions, subject to the stewards. And what we can see is Helder Gonzalez, your overall winner for Tractix Racing, ahead of Mikey Story. The elite class winner just fended off the Dexterous Motorsports Pro class winner, and I could imagine fuel might have been a little bit critical right at the end, but Gonzalez getting it done. Mikey Story then, second for Dexterous Motorsports Pro winner, very happy with that. But every step of the way, Christian Furs never left him by more than a second over the race distance. The two of them were absolutely joined nose to tail. The Panda Split Motorsports driver on a different day, I think, could have won it, but today it was Story who held on, and Furs had to settle for third. Vince Van Sander finishing third in the Pro class, a brilliant fourth place finish in the end for Pegasus SimRacing, staying out of trouble. That's what we love to see. With Ryan Davies there taking a fifth place finish for Empire Motorsport, digging in hard for second place the elite class ahead of his teammates, with Joe Nathan in the end splitting the Empire Motorsport trio and putting himself into third place in elite. Well done to the Rage Against the Game esports driver. Jacko Taylor took seventh place there as a result of the civil war in Empire Motorsport, ahead of Christian Maltrek, with the Miramika MA70 esports driver just inched ahead of Jocelyn Petts right at the end, and the DDK Racing Team driver finishing in ninth as a result. Casper Rotner took 10th place for Old Dudes in Cars, ahead of best the rest Richard Simnor, with the DCW Racing driver outpacing his teammate Andy Jones to the finish. Going a bit further down the order, focusing on the class overall winners, because of course we'll come to the class position shortly. That's where all the points are scored. If you look to 18th, you'll see Samuel Clark, your premier winner there for Dexterous Motorsport. A brilliant job from him, 2 seconds ahead of Old Dudes in Cars Blues Hendrik Zilka, who was the runner-up in the premier class, and both drivers there driving deserved results races. Outside the top 20, behind Nathan Anstis, you have to look a little bit further down before you do get to 21st place finish of Austin Graff, third place in Premier, and the American driver today for Axis Sim Sports, making sure to use strategy to get ahead of the pack. A brilliant effort from him, and in 28th place, Edward Berry for UKSimRacing Hill, with a huge undercut strategy, taking the Evo win there by a comfortable margin, ahead of what was in 31st place Jordan Lee Jones, with the DWR with SimCoach Setups driver starting for the pit lane, taking the runner-up spot there in Evo. Well done to him. That's a brilliant effort in the Aston Martin. Third in the Evo class was Thomas Weston, 2 laps down in the end, delivered us plenty of fighting, and indeed fighting with everybody he came across, and he finished off the Evo podium there. We had finishers all the way down to what was Alan Leather in 39th place, 4 laps down. And then we did have, unfortunately, non-finishers as classified. In fact, Daryl Giacovelli was 40th place, 4 laps down. I do apologise there for missing Daryl. But in 41st place, it was Steve Hughes there, who will be classified as a non-finisher, as he was over 5 laps off the leader. And the UK Sim Racing prize drive being followed up by the non-finishers of Alex Brown, Darren Giacovelli, Gareth Newton, Yavi Sierra, Noah Blackwell, and Raz Harper. Had it all go wrong within the opening couple of laps and could never recover. Coming to the individual class finishing positions then, and as we can see at the very top, Helder Gonzalez for Tractix Racing delivering a brilliant effort and, well, bringing on home the elite victory by 16.2 seconds over Empire Motorsports' Ryan Davies. On a different race, I would imagine that if the elite class field had decided not to fight each other and chase down Helder Gonzalez, it may have been a bit closer, but today the Tractix Racing driver was allowed to just run away with things, and he definitely showed that over the distance, particularly as well, of course, that brilliant lap split on the front row of the grid. Ryan Davies, he survived to finish second in the Ferrari, just ahead of fellow Ferrari driver for Rage Against the Game esports Joe Nathan, then it being only what was half a second I should say, to Jacko Taylor for Empire Motorsport, who'll be gutted to have missed out on the elite podium, but would have enjoyed all the fighting along the way. Casper Rotner managed to slice himself into fifth for Old Dudes in Cars, ahead of DCW Racing's pair of Richard Simnor and Andy Jones, with Philipp Schwörke having a nightmare race for VENARI Racing. Nothing clicked together after his win at the Red Bull Rig, so it really is a big reset there for the 363 driver, but he takes 8th ahead of Joe Newman, who in the end was demoted to 9th place, I do believe, for a drive-through penalty right at the end of the race for Empire Motorsport, and then it was non-finishes for Yavi Sierra and Raz Harper. Coming to the Pro class, and in Pro, well, the story was all about Mikey's story for Dexterous Motorsports, but not without plenty of chapters dedicated to Christian Furs of Pandaspec Motorsports, who was right behind him every step of the way. Keep your eyes on those two. If it continues like this for the whole season, we have got an incredible season of racing between the pair. Vince Van Sander finished in third for Pegasus Sim Racing, and a great effort from him, out of the trouble and made sure not to get caught up in any instance. Didn't have the pace for the top two, but definitely had the pace to be on the podium and the smarts with it, and that's how he got it. Christian Maltrek took fourth place, America MA70 Esports, and a brilliant back and forth battle between himself and Giles Philippets that went to the final lap. The DDK Racing team drive round off the Pro top 5, with Krista Houseway in 6th place for Tractix Racing, ahead of Matt Hoyland and Nathan Scott, with the trio there of Houseway, Hoyland and Scott, well, being followed up by Darren Sharples, but more important, in fact, as I do adjust my eyesight, the trio of Matt Hoyland, Nathan Scott and Darren Sharples is what I meant to say, separated only by 1.5 seconds at the finish line, and a great battle between the three. Darren Sharples in the end, followed up by Nathan Anstis for UKSimRacing Mansell, and outside the top 10 it was Mark Collicott as best the rest 11th head for DCW, and with Peter Cox finishing 12th place for Slow and Steady, and it was Jack Barker and Noah Blackwell who round off the order with a non-finish there for the SRI saving privateer Ryan Driver. As for the Premier class, And coming to the third of our classes, and here we can see Samuel Clark. A brilliant job from him to take victory in the Premier Class for Dexterous Motorsports. He was definitely kept honest every step of the way, and he got the job done, no doubt about it. 2.3 seconds behind was Old Dudes in Cars Blues Hendrik Zilker, who in the end finished in second through strategy and making sure to get ahead of the traffic. Austin Graff, meanwhile, third place in a similar mood for Axis Sport, saw the traffic building and decided to pit and get out of trouble, and that's how he made his way onto the Premier podium. So on steady races, Richard Jones took fourth place there in a very gradual rise up through the ranks ahead of Luke Sherlock, and while the priority driver will be absolutely gutted with the spins he had, because I think he had the pace to definitely be on the podium, if not win the race. Daniel Pace took sixth place for Old Dudes in Cars, a lap down as classified, but ahead of the SRI team pair of Ricardo Luis Pereira and John Watt. And then we did see Rob Windsor take ninth place for UKSimRacing Hill, 3 laps down. A further lap down to Alan Lever was UKSimRacing Mansell's driver, and then it was a non-finishers classified 7 laps down for UKSimRacing Price's Steve Hughes, 11th for our premiers. Lastly, it's the Evo class. And here in Evo, the story was all about Edward Berry, who gradually turned the pages behind the scenes and really capped off the book with a brilliant ending. The UKSimRacing Hill driver there made strategy work whilst everybody else fought and just snuck away with it. Jordan Jones, well, he took second place for DWO SimCoach setups, 1 minute and 3 seconds down. But to be fair, it's not about how you start the race, it's about how you finish. And how about that, going from a pit lane start to a second place on the road? Definitely one of the stories of the season. Thomas Weston fought hard every step of the way, but finished third in, a lap down. But he's one to watch out for the remainder of the season, that's certain. With Richard White at fourth place for UKSimRacing Mansell. Again, things not clicking together today like at the Red Bull Ring. And Joel Lauder as well, for a long time fighting for second with Jones. But that small mistake for the S's sequence became a big issue, and the SRI saving privateer Ryan Driver had to settle for fifth. It was a further lap down to Split Strat Esports' Max Gelgay, with also on a 2 lap down situation to Carl Tivley, 3 laps down to Darren Giacovelli, and in non-finishers as classified for Slow and Steady Races Alex Brown, the priority Darren Giacovelli, and GPX SimSports Gareth Newton. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional finishing positions. And as we say goodbye to Mexico, well, it means there's only one thing, and it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to be on the grid at SimRacing International, or at least wanting to know a bit more about the community and everything in between, well, there's never been a better time to join the SRI community, because we have got plenty going on a weekly basis. On Thursdays, we do have our official Trophy.ai sponsored GT3 Championship, which is in its 10th season at the moment, celebrating an anniversary. Alternative, if you're still a GT3 fan, you've been tuning in today, of course, to the Sunday GT3 Championship, as presented by UKSimRacing Community in its 16th season. Both of our GT3 series going absolutely strong. But if you're looking for something that's GT3s, but with a bit of a twist, well, of course, we do have on every alternating Sunday evening the America's GT Challenge, which is a tour of the globe, particularly on the North American and South American continents, and it's all focused around multi-class racing action, including GT3s, but also the cars they replaced, GTEs. And if you haven't tuned into it so far, it's definitely one to recommend, because I can promise you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering, do cars with only a 2 to 3 second lap pace difference really work well in multi-class? Well, I'll let you be the decider, but my answer would be yes, it definitely does. We also do have a new series upcoming on Mondays in the future, which there'll be more about in due course. And we also, of course, if you don't want to pay to be on the grid, we want to take a little bit more casual, particularly if you're finding your feet in a league racing scenario. On iRacing, we always do have our free-to-join practice league, which runs on Tuesday evenings and Saturdays at 10 o'clock in the morning. So for all this and plenty more, if you want to join the SRI community, all you got to do is jump on the Discord, and that invite link is available on screen there, and you can use that to get yourself on track and find out more about how you can be on the grid. But as we get now set to look ahead, we'd like to say a quick thank you firstly to our league and series sponsors, Trophy.ai, Carmain Modern Technology, SimCoach, GP2 Group, and of course, Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. And we're very grateful for that recognition. And a big thank you for Motorsport UK esports division as we continue to work with them. But lastly, we need to say a big thank you to you guys and girls for tuning in today. And now we look ahead to round number 3. And in a week's time, the story will continue. But we head to Spain, and for the circuit to Barcelona Catalunya, it's the ultimate testing circuit and the balance and performance circuit, which will see our drivers do duel under what will be a cooling Spanish sun. The race will occur on Sunday, the 12th of October 2025. For round number 3, you can come join us as if it were live on Wednesday, the 15th of October 2025, as we look to see how things will shape up. We've had 4 different winners today compared to our winners of round number 1, and that means the standings are all jumbled. That's why we haven't got standings to present to you, because we need a little bit more time to to do the maths and start to work out how it all comes together. And that means there is no story forming at the moment, but could a story form in Spain? Could we start to see some early favourites? Well, only time will tell, and you'll need to tune in next time to find out. Until then, we have been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but much like our drivers as well, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget and remember to stay on track. Good night.